Coming up on this episode of the Hockey Nuts, Steve and I get you caught up with all the news of the week around the hockey world. The NHL regular season is underway, and Steve and I are thrilled that there are finally actual games to talk about. We'll also give you our picks for who will win the Stanley Cup, as well as individual awards. We'll have all the details of all this, plus the minor league minute, and our picks of the week coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 2, Episode 8, recorded on Friday, October 6, 2017. Regular season is underway.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name's Wayne. I'm here again with Steve. How's it going today, Steve?
Good, Wayne. Good to be with you. Happy start of the NHL season, NHL inaugural season to you.
Yes.
And I am still brimming with excitement over the games and all of that stuff. So I pass along all of that to you.
We are very, very happy right now because, like you just said, the NHL season is now underway, and we have games on every single night, at least from now until probably Christmas break. when they take 3 days off for Christmas, we'll have games every day. So
that's right.
It's a lot of fun, and of course we're going to be talking about that tonight. It was already 2 days in the books because we're recording here on Friday the 6th of October, and the season started on the 4th, so we've got 2 days to talk about worth of games. We also have, speaking of those games, there's been 4 hat tricks already, so we'll talk about those a little bit. The guys, Ovechkin, Simmonds, Brendan Saad, and of course Connor McJesus got his hat trick. And actually, that was an NHL record I found out a little while ago for the most hat tricks since, the opening season of the NHL back in 1917.
Wow.
Was the most number of hat tricks on opening day. So, big day there. We have Jaromir Jagr is finally signed. We'll have details on that. And, of course, this week we're going to finish our season previews by predicting the entire playoff bracket and maybe even a little bit of individual awards if we have time. And generally I don't like to get too crazy with predictions, but we got to throw something out there. You know, we got a podcast. Yep. We got listeners. They're listening to us. We got to tell them what we think is going to happen so that when we are right or wrong at the end of the season, we can talk about it.
That's right.
And then, of course, after the show ends, I'm introducing a new segment. Well, we've kind of been doing it already, but we're going to be doing it every week from here on out. I'm going to do a fantasy hockey segment where we're basically just going to take a look at the NHL from a fantasy hockey perspective. And the reason I'm tacking it on to the end of the show, which will be right after the music ends at the end of the show, will be obviously not everybody's into fantasy hockey. So those who want to listen to that part of the show, we have it at the end of the show. Those who don't can just skip on to the whatever next podcast they're going to be listening to once the music ends, and you can just skip that fantasy part if you're not interested. So I wanted to make it easy and kind of please both crowds, both the fantasy hockey crowd and the people that don't care about it. So that's what we're going to do from here on out. So the fantasy hockey segment will be at the end after the music plays or finishes playing. All right, before we get started on all the news of the week, I want to remind everybody that we are on basically every platform that you can get a podcast, including iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Google Play Music, Player.fm, any Android or Apple app that gathers and organizes podcasts where pretty much can be found. Just do a search for the Hockey Nuts on all those platforms, and we've been around long enough now that you should be able to find us fairly easy on just about any of those platforms. You can also listen to us on a couple of different websites. First and foremost, our website at thehockeynuts.com. And you can also listen to us at thehockeywriters.com. And they have a specific page just for hockey-related podcasts. And we're found on that page along with all the other podcasts that they have and And they have a wide variety of podcasts. A lot of them are specific teams, and others are general hockey ones like ours. So you find that there. And then, of course, they have a whole host of articles as well. If you want to get in touch with us, the best and quickest way to get in touch with us would be to tweet us. I'm at Wayne Halley 9. Steve is at sball504man. You can also email us. We're at feedback@thehockeynuts.com. And you can also reach us through our Facebook page at facebook.com/thehockeynuts, and our YouTube channel, which you can find just by going to thehockeynuts.com/YouTube. All right, let's get started. And now that the season started, we got games to talk about. So, and we generally, if you've listened to us in the past, know that we have 3 teams that we're primarily focused on, or that we like to talk about every week. And that is our local Carolina Hurricanes, your New York Rangers, and my Boston Bruins. And of course, now that we finally have created a new logo for the podcast and a kind of a static photo for our YouTube page, you can clearly see which one of us is Ranger fan and which one of us is Bruins fan, because the new logo includes a picture of us in our jerseys posing with the Stanley Cup, which we both had the opportunity to do so back in April. So I've done a little photoshopping with those pictures and came up with a new logo that you should start seeing, if not this week, probably within the next couple of weeks on the podcast. So, all right. So let's go ahead and start. Well, there's really nothing to talk about with the Carolina Hurricanes. They haven't played yet. They don't play till Saturday. They're probably going to be the last team that plays. But they open at home with Minnesota on Saturday.
Right.
And like I said, I think they're going to be the only team that hasn't played once Saturday comes around, because everybody else started Wednesday, Thursday, and some are even starting tonight. So, all right. Well, let's move on to your Rangers then.
Well, I watched it. I got to confess that was the only game I watched last night. I've had a hectic last few days, but I did watch the Rangers game. And of course, if you watched it, there was almost a 5th hat trick in that game. Mika Zibanejad had more than 2 or 3 opportunities, but due to the play of Semyon Varlamov, couldn't get that 3rd goal to go. But we wound up losing to Colorado 3-2 in a very exciting game, and it was quite enjoyable to watch, except for the outcome. Semyon Varlamov had 40. I think he had either 30, 38. Well, he had 40 shots. There were 40 shots on goal, I believe, and he had 38 saves. So he played just a tremendous game. Best game I've ever seen him play in his career. And Colorado just hung in there. They played very well against us. So I guess there'll be some adjustments and whatnot made, but the Rangers did look very good in that game, and you can't win them all. I was impressed with the play, particularly Zibanejad, but I was also really impressed with the play of Kevin Shattenkirk. He brought it, man. He played very, very well. He set up the first goal that Zibanejad had, and he's going to be a really good addition to the Rangers. It's obvious. And they said that he had 120 tickets that he gave out to friends and family and people that he knows. 120 people at their Madison Square Garden last night. And a lot of them were wearing number 22 jerseys with I guess T-shirts that he'd given them.
Yep.
So really amazing.
Yeah, it was definitely a big night for him. I see the NHL, the shows that come on in the evening, the highlight shows, whatever you want to call them, on the fly. I think it was. They did a story about him and his Rangers debut, and they were talking about how nervous he was about finally playing for his hometown team, the team he grew up cheering for, and he had tons of people in the stands. It was a neat story to see. Makes you wonder what must have been going through his mind all those years that he's been playing whenever he played against the Rangers.
Right. It has to be more awesome now for him than it was playing as an opponent to the Rangers. I would think that, just from the way he played last night, and he might have been nervous, but he played very well. It didn't seem to me that he had any jitters. He's very good. I was just really impressed with how he distributes the puck. He's got great vision. I think one of the big attributes I see of Kevin Shattenkirk is his vision. He's able to get the puck where it needs to go, and he might not even be looking in that direction. He's very good at spotting open men, and he's careful with things at the puck and stuff. He was very impressive to watch last night.
Yeah, so. I saw him in interviews after the game, and he said the first couple of shifts he was a little nervous, and once he got the kinks out on that, he was able to get back to playing his regular game.
Right.
The game that he's used to playing.
The game, yeah. Yeah, he played very well. He really did.
Yep.
So
well, good to see that he's happy playing for his hometown team. I know there was a lot of Bruins fans that had hoped that he would have signed there, but I didn't expect it. In fact, I wasn't surprised, and I almost half expected him to sign with the Rangers. But anyway.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the Rangers are 0-1 to start off the year.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And we don't have any rest. We got to play Toronto tomorrow night and Montreal on Sunday. Toronto in Toronto, and then hop a flight back home and play Montreal Sunday in the Garden. So that's not an easy 3 out of 4, if you ask me.
That's a pretty tough start for sure.
Right.
All right, well, let's talk about my Bruins because they played their first game last night. And big news out of that one was they had to start because of all the injuries they have. And we'll get to the injuries, but they had to start 5 rookies last night in the game. But they all contributed, or pretty much all of them contributed. Both Jake DeBrusk and Charlie McAvoy got their first goals of the year last night, or officially their first goals of the career, even though McAvoy played in the playoffs last year. They both contributed goals. Anders Bjork got an assist or more. I don't have the score sheet in front of me, but I know he assisted on at least one of those goals. And, it was the kids running the show last night.
Yeah. That's good.
And the Bruins came out with a 4-3 win against defending Western Conference champion Nashville Predators. And the takeaway there was it got a little dicey at the end. At one point, it was 3-1 late in the third, Bruins. And they basically earned their way to that score. And then things got a little sloppy after that. Of course, Nashville pulled their goalie with 2 or 3 minutes left in the game. And the Bruins scored a empty netter almost right away. Brad Marchand got that one. And then Nashville came roaring back and scored 2 goals. Bang, bang, right off the bat. And with about 35, 40 seconds left in the game, they had the puck in Boston's end, almost able to tie the game up and come all the way back from that 4-1 in the last couple of minutes. So it got a little dicey there at the end, but the Bruins got out of there with 2 points, which is all that matters. And they are off and running with a 1-0 record. Now, the next 2 games the Bruins have are against Colorado, which obviously snuck up on the Rangers last night. Hopefully they won't do the same to Boston, but they're playing a home and home with Colorado. They got them at home Monday afternoon at 1, and then they play at Colorado on Wednesday the 11th. So, but the Bruins will be off all weekend this weekend, so they don't play again till the 9th.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Wow. That's a nice rest
to
start the season.
Yep.
I was looking at you. We got those 2 games that I mentioned, and God, we don't. So we play twice before you even hit the ice, and then we play again on Tuesday. So we've got a lot of games in the first few days of the season here. So yeah, well, you know how it is. Take the rest when you get it.
Yeah, well, the Bruins really have a light schedule in October. Starting last night was their first game. Between then and the 18th, they only have 5 games.
Wow.
So yeah, they've got the 2 games. Of course, they're going to be on the road. It's not the West Coast trip. They're doing Colorado, Phoenix, and then Vegas. Colorado on the 11th, Phoenix on the 14th, or Arizona. Sorry, Arizona. Yeah. I'm still doing it, and then Vegas on the 15th. and then after the 15th, they got 3 days off before they come back home on the 19th to play their 6th game of the year. So it looks like the Bruins will be chasing everybody else in terms of the schedule this year. Last year it was like the other way around, where they played most of the season 2 or 3 games in more than everybody else, and then those other teams caught up with them when they caught up in the schedule.
Right.
All right. Well, let's move on now that we're done talking about our teams, let's move on to some of the transactions that have been happening around the league. And first thing I want to do is just wrap up at least all of the free agent signings. I think this will probably be the last week where we just simply list them all because there have been so many. Next week, probably starting next week, we can start slowing down because there won't be as many signings. But looking back, and we go back to the 29th was the last ones that we talked about, right? Did we talk about? No, we did not. Right. We did not talk about the Craig Anderson signing, I don't think.
No.
So Craig Anderson, goaltender, Ottawa Senators. Obviously, he was a big hero for them last year. Signed a 2-year, total of $9.5 million contract for him. That's $4.75 per year, which is a nice contract for him.
That is.
That basically makes him, now he's 36 years old. That probably explains why it's only 2 years and not longer than that. But he will definitely be the starter for Ottawa for the next 2 seasons. After that, Nicholas Hague, 18-year-old defenseman, signed with Vegas on an entry-level deal, 3 years worth, total of $2.775. Jimmy Hayes went from a pro tryout to a full-fledged contract. He signed a 1-year deal with New Jersey for $700,000 a year, which means he's probably not going to be guaranteed a nightly spot on their lineup. That's a pretty low. That's a pretty low number for Jimmy Hayes to be signed.
Yeah, that is. That really is a low number. I'm sure Boston is taking a look at that, seeing as he left their organization. So that.
Well, they bought him out, so they've moved on from Jimmy Hayes. Even if they could have gotten him for $700,000, well, they couldn't have anyway. They had to buy him out in order to get rid of his contract. So, hopefully he'll wake up and start playing like the Jimmy Hayes that we used to see when he was in Florida. Because if he gets back to that guy, he'll be a steal for New Jersey.
Right.
All right, Scotty Upshall, 33-year-old left winger, signed with St. Louis on a 1-year, $800,000 deal. It's a nice win-win for both sides there. David Booth, 32-year-old left winger, signed with Detroit on a 1-year, $700,000 contract. Kind of interesting there with Detroit not having any cap space, that they were able to pull that one off.
That was the first thing that came to my mind. I'm trying to really quickly here scan and see how they did that.
Yeah,
I guess they were about $800,000 under the cap or so.
They are officially, of course, they've put Johan Franzen on long-term injured reserve. That was done effective the opening day of the year. That cleared off almost $4 million. But according to capfriendly.com, the Red Wings are exactly at the cap. The cap currently is $78,832,597, and that's where the Red Wings are at. So they're not over or under the cap. They are right exactly at the cap right now.
Wow.
With that.
Somebody sharpened their pencil.
Now they have 3 players on what they call season opening injured reserve. I haven't seen that one before. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't have an explanation on what that is, but they've got 3 players on that. Mm-hmm. Whatever that means, and that's Evgeny Svechnikov. Sorry, Tyler Bertuzzi and Matt Laredo are all on season opening injured reserve. I guess I'll have to look that term up and see what that means. Yeah, probably cleared up some of the space they needed to clear. All right, Ty Lewis, Alex Formenton, and Tanner Kaspick and Brandon Crawley all signed entry-level deals with their respective teams. Lewis is with Colorado, Formenton is with Ottawa, Kaspick, St. Louis, and Crawley with the Rangers. Those are all 3-year entry-level deals at the $700,000 to $790,000 range. They're all somewhere in that ballpark. Most of those players will probably end up down in the A. Josh Anderson, 23-year-old right winger. We've been talking about him the last couple of weeks. Finally signed with Columbus. He signed a 3-year deal totaling $5.5 per year. That's a $1.85 cap hit. So they were finally able to get that done. I'm not sure why that one took so long. Drake Batherson, Caden Fulcher, and Kyle Kaiser, all young teenage players, all signed entry-level deals with their respective teams. Again, 3-year deals in the $700,000 to $770,000 range. Batherson with Ottawa, Fulcher with Detroit, and Kaiser with Boston. And I know Kaiser ended up back in juniors for him. Left wing Harry Zolnachik signed with Nashville on a 1-year, $650,000 deal. Tanner Glass, left wing, signed with Calgary on a 1-year, $650,000 deal. So a couple of minor deals there. Jack Eichel, I know we're going to spend a little time on this one.
Yeah.
He signed a contract extension now. He still has 1 more year left on his entry-level deal. He signed an extension for 8 more years worth a total of $80 million. That comes out to $10 million per year for Jack Eichel.
And they are paying him as much as Anze Kopitar.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are a little upset by that signing because, yeah, he's had a few injury problems, but he hasn't really put up the numbers yet. I mean, he was drafted in the same year as Connor McDavid, right?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
This is his third year, so yes, he was.
Yeah, so he went number 2 overall, of course, behind Connor McDavid, and his biggest output so far. He's played 2 full seasons. His biggest output was last year, 57 points in 61 games. Now, he's approaching that point per game limit, but he hasn't yet gotten there. And his biggest goal output has been 24. Now, he did miss 21 games last year due to injury. So he probably would have been well into the 70s in terms of points if he would have played all year. But I see this, obviously, is a huge bet on the future in terms of Buffalo signing him for $10 million a year. They know, obviously, he's that kind of player that can put the team on his back and carry them however deep they go in the playoffs.
Right.
Although he hasn't done it yet, but they're betting on the future with him, and that's why they signed him now. Apparently, if they signed him, my question is, if they signed him for $10 million now, how much do they think the price is going to go up at the end of this season if they would have waited and signed him in the summer?
I don't know that it would have went up any for Buffalo. That bankrolled their future. But, I think, here's what I think. I think they made sure that nobody can go after Jack Eichel. I mean, no team is going to go, now that he's signed this contract, and bring on a player that's guaranteed $80 million. It's just not going to happen. So he's in Buffalo. And also, I think, Wayne, if you look at Buffalo as a city, a hockey city, in this era of Jimmy VC 2.0, as you've called it, they've got a guy who can put the puck in the back of the net when healthy. And I just think that they ensured to their fans and their future that they have a guy who's going to come out there for the next 8 years or 7 years or whatever and really give them a chance if they can put some talent around him, which you and I both discussed last week. That's the problem with Buffalo. They're going to have to put together pieces around him now.
Yep.
They have a few, but they're not nearly as deep a team as, say, the Toronto Maple Leafs are, or the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that's what they've got to do. And so that's how I see it. I think it's a lot of money to pay for that guy, but he is a great player.
Yeah. And if you don't think he is now, he definitely will be.
Right.
Because he is only 20 years old after all.
That's right.
All right. Let's see. Moving on. Alex Chiasson, 27-year-old right winger, signed with the Capitals. 1 year, $660,000 there. Nikolai Ehlers, another big contract. 21-year-old left winger, signed with Winnipeg. 7 years, $42 million, which comes out to $6 million per year. So Winnipeg is now starting to assemble their core of players. And it seems like, and I actually heard it on, I think it was one of the shows that's on NHL Network. I think it was the one that's on Hockey Central in the afternoon, where they were talking that all the teams around the NHL seem to be building a core of 5 to 8 players, that they're going to spend 80% of their money on these 5 to 8 players. And then everybody else is interchangeable parts. And what is essentially going to happen is, the teams that assemble the best 5 to 8 players, because when it comes right down to it, if you got a minute left in any kind of game that's close, who are the guys that you're going to put out on the ice? It's going to be those. Right. It's going to be those 6 players that you think give you the best chance to win. Well, it's going to be those 6 players that are going to end up being the highest paid players. So it looks like all the teams are basically assembling a core of that 5 to 8 players, and they're putting that group. Each team is putting that group up against everybody else and say, okay, your 5 players and my 5 players. Ultimately, whoever has the best is generally going to win more games.
Right.
So, and we've talked about this in the past, and obviously Ehlers is at that $6 million mark. He's in that group for Winnipeg.
Right. He's a good player, and $6 million a year, that may be what it takes to keep him.
Yep. He got 64 points last year, 25 goals in a full 82-game season. So this will be his third season in the NHL, third full season in the NHL. So he's right in that same group with Jack Eichel. All right, Cody Franson, defenseman, signed with Chicago, 1 year, $1 million. Obviously filling out that bottom pairing for Chicago. Daniel Winnick, center, signed a 1 year, $660,000 with Minnesota. Brandon Peary turned up in Vegas.
Yeah.
26-year-old forward. He plays basically all three positions. Signed a 1 year, $650,000. So Vegas added a little sandpaper there. Probably won't play much unless it's up against a team that they need that sandpaper. Probably like the Kings. I see a rivalry starting to form there with Vegas and LA.
Yeah.
So that could be a good rivalry going forward. Josh Manson, 25-year-old defenseman, signed with Anaheim. 4 years, $16.4 million. That's a cap hit of 4.1 per year. Obviously, Manson is going to be a key player for Anaheim. Wouldn't put him in that core 5 to 6, 5 to 8 players, but he's in that next tier right beyond that. More of a stay-at-home guy. He only had 17 points last year, Manson. And the last signing I have is Mark Borowiecki, 28-year-old defenseman, signed with Ottawa. 2 year, $2.4 million. That's a cap hit of 1.2 per year. Obviously filling out the bottom pairing of that group. All right. That's all I have for signings, unless you have one that I missed. Well, we're going to talk about the Jagr signing here shortly.
Yes.
We'll move on to take a look, one last look at the PTOs. Just about everybody that was on PTO either signed or was released. Obviously, David Booth, Alex Chiasson, Cody Franson, Tanner Glass, Jimmy Hayes, Scotty Upshaw, and Daniel Winnick are all players that got the PTO and eventually signed with the team. Ryan White, Joe Pendenza, and Chris Kelly and Andrew Desjardins, as of the recording of this podcast, still technically remain on a pro tryout contract. Although I looked up earlier today, none of them have yet to play a game for their respective teams, but they haven't been released either. So they're being kept for whatever reason. Everybody else who signed a pro tryout contract, and if you want to find out who did, you can go back 2 episodes, and we listed every one of them back then. But everybody else who signed a pro contract has been released and are officially free agents. And I would imagine a fair amount of them are going to basically announce their retirement at this point.
Right.
All right. And the last thing is, let's just list a few names of, speaking of free agents, of players that still remain as free agents. Brian Giunta, P.A. Parento, Jerome McGinley, Laurie Kovikoski, Dennis Weidman, Ryan White, Chris Vandevelde, Fedor Tootin, Chris Kelly, Yuri Hudler, Roman Polak, Jay McClement, John Mitchell, Drew Miller, John Michael Lyles, among many others. Cap Friendly actually has a full list of 28 players who are technically listed as free agents but have not signed any contracts. And the reason they're being listed as free agent is probably because they haven't announced their retirement yet. So these are guys that are still known to be looking for a job but haven't found one yet. And I would imagine some of these guys are going to end up over in Europe, particularly your Eastern European-born players of that group will probably end up in the KHL or another league over that way. Okay, let's talk about Jagr a little bit. Jagr finally signed a contract. He signed with his 9th different NHL team. He signed a 1 year, $1 million contract with the Calgary Flames on Wednesday. A couple of quotes from him. He said, "I'm glad I'm here. I want to say thanks to the Calgary Flames organization. They gave me a chance to play at least one more year in the NHL. I've been in the NHL for so many years, I don't even know how many. I started when I was 18. I'm 45 now. I love this game. I love the NHL." Jagr, who could earn an additional $1 million in bonus, added that 99% or 99.9% might be my last season. It will be his first with a Canadian-based team. He also said, "When I decided last minute where I wanted to go, it was a big factor also. I wanted to get the experience so I can say I've played for a Canadian team, so I'm here. I was waiting for such a long time," he said. "This summer was a different summer than I'm used to. I didn't know if I was ever going to play here. I'm going to do the maximum I can to do to help this team win. Give me a little bit of time. It was a different summer when you don't have the motivation to practice to go in a direction. I didn't know where I was going to play or if I was going to play. Now I know. I probably just need a little bit more time than usual. After that, I'll give everything I can to help this team," he added. "I said a long time ago I wanted to play until I was 50, he said. "The new trend of the NHL, and I understand it, the managers and presidents and teams have to give the opportunities to the young guys. I understand it. That's why it's hard for so many older guys to find a job. I'm glad I did. Not that many older guys can say the same thing." So, and we'll have a related story to this one later in the show, but good to see that Jaromir Jagr is going to get at least one more season in the NHL, but I have to agree with him. This is probably it for him.
I was going to say, I don't see how he can play another year after this, Wayne, in the NHL. I just don't. Calgary's not going to re-sign him. You know that. He's signed a 1-year contract with them unless he is the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. And then maybe they'd consider it. But I just don't. I don't see this extending any longer. And it's tremendous. He's played unbelievable number of years. But I'm happy he signed. I'm glad. I look forward to seeing him.
Yep.
And we do have a story later on in the podcast that a lot of people are happy.
It also puts Calgary on the list of teams I want to go see this year live. So So we can go see Calgary or Jagr one last time. I don't know when they come here to Carolina, but I'll probably want to be at that game.
Yeah, that'd be a great game. And the traveling Jagrs will not be there.
Nope. No, we could start our own. The traveling Jagrs from the South.
Yeah. Oh boy.
I don't know how that would go.
I could say a few things here, Wayne, but I won't.
Is that where we wear our different Jagr jerseys and then put a hunting jacket on over it? Is that
Carry a red man in our pocket? Okay.
All right, next story. All right, defenseman Derek Pouliot was traded by the Pittsburgh Penguins to the Vancouver Canucks on Tuesday. Penguins acquired defenseman Andre Pedon and a 4th-round pick in the 2018 NHL draft from Vancouver in return. Pouliot, who's 23, has 1 season remaining on his 3-year, $4.05 million contract. According to CapFriendly.com, he can become a restricted free agent on July 1st. Pouliot's a player that we've watched playing junior. We liked his skill set, his talent. Canucks general manager Jim Benning said, "Our pro scouts have followed him in the last few years, and we feel like in getting him, we're betting on his talent. His skill level are going to come to rise to the top, so we think it's a gamble worth taking." Pouliot had 14 points in 67 games for Pittsburgh in the past 3 games. He appeared in 2 Stanley Cup playoff games in 2016 when the Penguins defeated the Sharks in 6 games to win their first of back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. Pedon, who's 24, played 13 games for the Canucks in 2015-16. He was selected by the Islanders in the 3rd round in the 2011 NHL draft. Pedon was also on loan to Utica of the American Hockey League prior to the trade. So kind of a minor deal there, but obviously Pouliot was almost looked at as an extra there in Pittsburgh, so Pittsburgh went out and tried to get a little something for him, and they did.
Right.
All right, that's all the transactions that I saw. Unless you saw something else, we can move on to injuries.
No, that's it, Wayne. We covered it pretty extensively.
All right, injuries. Bruins center Patrice Bergeron and forward David Backes did not play for the Bruins in their season opener against the Predators at TD Garden on Thursday. Bergeron, who has a lower body injury, and Backes, who has diverticulitis. I think I said that right. Diverticulitis. Missed the morning skate at Warrior Ice Arena. Coach Bruce Cassidy said then Bergeron is day-to-day. The Bruins later announced Backes would be out 3 to 4 weeks. Bergeron has been off the ice with the exception of a brief participation in practice on Tuesday since Monday. Backes did not skate on Wednesday, and Cassidy said after practice that he was under the weather. The Bruins were also without defenseman Torrey Krug, who's still recovering from a fractured jaw sustained in a preseason game back on September 19th. So the Bruins are a little banged up to start the year.
Yeah.
That's 3 injuries to 3 pretty key players on that team.
Yeah.
And the David Backes, I actually had to work last night till 10, so I didn't watch the game until after I got home. But I listened to the game live, and they were talking. The radio guys were talking about it. That diverticulitis, I guess, is some sort of a disease of the some sort of digestive something.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's not having any fun right now. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Dealing with that. So the fact that it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks to recover is probably something that he just needs to take care of and just stay off the ice for a while. So hopefully he'll be back sooner than that. But all right, center Ryan Getzlaf did not play for the Anaheim Ducks in their season opener against the Coyotes on Thursday because of a lower body injury. Thursday morning, Roger Randy Carlisle said Getzlaf, who's Anaheim's captain, did not take part in the morning skate and would not dress. Getzlaf, who's 32, skated on his own before practice on Tuesday and was able to practice on Wednesday. He led the Ducks last year in scoring with 73 points and had 19 points in 17 playoff games. So that's a big loss for them, but it looks like he's just day-to-day at this point. So
Yes.
And I believe Anaheim got a win last night, despite the fact that, they did. They beat Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona, whatever. Arizona.
You should be allowed to say either one of those, and hockey fans are going to know. So don't sweat it, man. Call them Phoenix. That's what I called them for all those years.
Exactly.
And I never went to Gila River.
Yep. So, the Ducks will definitely need him long term, but in the short term, they did manage to eke out a win last night. They had to come back and do it, though. They were behind 4-1 in that game, and then they came back and won. Right. All right, defenseman Erik Karlsson, recovering from a surgery in his left foot, won't dress for the Ottawa Senators season opener against the Capitals on Thursday, but could play Saturday against the Detroit Red Wings. A two-time Norris Trophy winner who had surgery to repair torn tendons on June 14th did not take part in the morning skate before the Senators opened their regular season at Canadian Tire Center. Karlsson remains day-to-day, so obviously Ottawa wants him back as soon as possible. But it looks like he's almost there.
I think he's going to play probably the second, third game, Wayne. And we talked about it again last week. I think my way of saying it is Erik Karlsson, Ottawa Senators without Erik Karlsson is like chocolate without the sugar. Don't even bother eating it. Yep. It tastes so bad, Yep. They have to have him. They really can't even luck their way through 10 games, I don't think. They need Erik Karlsson as soon as he can possibly get back to the ice. So, I don't think they're going to put him back on the ice injured, but they're going to try and rush things along now that they know that the prognosis isn't for many games.
Yeah, they managed to get an overtime loss, managed to get an overtime loss. They got a point anyway in their only game that they've played so far. But they don't want to go too long with him on the sidelines. Right. All right. Did you have any other injuries you wanted to talk about? There's a few little bumps and bruises here and there, but nothing, that's going to cause people to miss any games. So,
did you see that fight though between Zach Cashin and Tanner Glass?
No, I didn't.
Who do you think won the outcome of that? And there was a winner.
Those are two tough guys.
Yep.
They really are. I don't know who would win that.
Tanner Glass, I feel, got the best of him.
Did he?
If you watch the fight, and I don't know if he is injured, he could be. Zach Cashin had a deep gash on his forehead, and he was bleeding all over the ice coming off the ice.
Oh, well.
Quite a fight.
If all it takes is stitches, he'll be back. He won't miss any time.
I'm sure that's right. But that's I'm bringing that up as, a potential.
Yeah.
It was quite a fight.
Hockey players are known to jump back out there even in the same game when they get gashes like that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we have a suspension to talk about. Washington Capitals forward Tom Wilson has been suspended for 4 games without play for boarding St. Louis forward Sammy Blais during the NHL preseason game number 109 in St. Louis on Sunday, October 1st. The NHL's Department of Player Safety announced a couple of days ago. The incident occurred at 17:39 of the second period. Wilson was assessed a major penalty for boarding and a game misconduct. Wilson is considered a repeat offender under the terms of the collective bargaining agreement, and based on his average annual salary, will forfeit $97,560. The money goes to the Players Emergency Assistance Fund. That's a big price to pay for a game that doesn't count. But when you're a repeat offender, they tend to throw the book at you. I didn't see the hit, so I don't know if it was warranted. But in my experience, the Department of Player Safety usually gets things pretty well right most of the time. All right, got a few other interesting stories going on around the league that kind of interested me. First and foremost, Carolina Hurricanes named center Jordan Staal and defenseman Justin Falk as co-captains yesterday. They will be the 14th and 15th players in the history of the Hurricanes/Hartford Whalers franchise to serve as captain and will switch between home and road games. Hurricanes coach Bill Peters said Staal will be the home captain for the first half of the season and Falk the road captain, and then they will switch roles for the second half. Forward Jeff Skinner will serve as an alternate captain for the entire season. There's obviously guys who are leaders in that room who'd love to wear the C and didn't get selected, General Manager Ron Francis said, and they're probably disappointed. But that's a good thing. You want guys who want to be that guy. Jordan Staal and Falk filled a vacancy left by Eric Staal, who was traded to the Rangers on February 28, 2016. Jordan Staal, Falk, Skinner, and center Victor Rask were alternate captains last year. It's an honor to wear it, Staal said. We both understand who the leaders are in the room. It's always been a shared thing. It's still a bit of an acknowledgement and an honor. I'm definitely very excited about it. Staal will wear the C on Saturday when the Hurricanes open their season at home against Minnesota. Eric is beginning his second season with the Wild. Being able to skate on the ice with the C, playing against Eric, is going to be really cool, Jordan said. He's excited for me, and I'm beyond excited about that. It's going to make that opening night even more special. So kind of interesting choice there. I thought they'd go with Justin Williams, but after thinking about it, I'm thinking, well, why would you bring in a guy? Yeah, he's a veteran. He used to be there. He's got the history. But now that I'm thinking about it, it doesn't surprise me they didn't go with him just because he's technically a newcomer to the room. So why would you bring a guy in and then instantly make him captain? Kind of ticking off all the guys who've been there.
Right.
Stahl and Falk have been there for the last several years, and they obviously are leaders on that team. And, it's actually good. I wish they would have gone with one guy, though, instead of having co-captains. That's kind of weird.
Yeah. Has that ever occurred before, Wayne?
I think I've seen it before. It's just not something that you see very often. Probably what happened is I'm sure the way it's done inside is it's done with a voting process, and that probably those two guys kept coming up tied or whatever. So they decided to just go with co-captains. Because only when the games are being played, only one guy can wear it. Mm-hmm. So you can't have two C's out on the ice at the same time.
Right.
That's why they're going to alternate. So one will be the home captain, the other will be the road captain. It'll be interesting for those folks who like to buy the jerseys. If you own a Jordan Stahl jersey, if you got a both, you got to have one with a C and one with an A.
Hey, that brings up a good point, Wayne. What do you think of the new jerseys now that they've converted to Adidas?
They're nice.
I think they're nicer than the Reebok jerseys. Mm-hmm. I really do. That's my opinion, but
they're expensive though for a fan to buy.
Yeah, I haven't seen pricing.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Well, in my mind, if you're paying over $100 for a article of clothing, that's ridiculous. But I understand the fashion industry. Some of the clothing out there that celebrities wear, they're paying thousands of dollars for articles of clothing, which really blows my mind. But that's just my simple thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 175 or something. Here, let me look it up real quick. And of course, their website's not going to work right now. I don't know if that's just me or what. But anyway, yeah, I think the prices were somewhere in the, it of course it depends if you got names and numbers written on it, but it's hundreds of dollars. Let's just put it that way.
Wow.
One of the new jerseys. They're expensive. They're nice though. I mean, every jersey comes complete with a fight strap. Even the replica jerseys have fight straps now, which wasn't always the case.
Right.
So, but yeah, they're very nice jerseys.
I agree.
The next story, to commemorate tonight's start of the 17-18 NHL season. Well, this story was written a couple days ago. Each of the 31 NHL teams will have an official hashtag-triggered emoji, the NHL and Twitter announced on Wednesday. While hockey fans have been sharing their excitement for the new season via the official hashtag NHL Faceoff hashtag, starting today at noon Eastern and continuing throughout the entire NHL season, fans can add a new level of engagement with their favorite teams, players, and fellow hockey fans on Twitter with unique team logo emojis. Fans can add team logos to their tweets by tweeting the official team hashtags. And I've got a link to that story in the show notes. And by the way, you can get the show notes just simply most of your podcast app. You can pull up the show notes right there. But if you can't do that, you can go right to our website, and I post all the show notes to our website at thehockeynuts.com, so you can see whenever I refer to the show notes, you can get them in multiple different ways. But anyway, link to this story is in the show notes where you can find out your team's favorite hashtag. And I looked up a couple of them, and Carolina's is hashtag Redvolution. The Rangers is actually pretty simple. It's hashtag NYR. And Boston's is hashtag NHL Bruins. So if you're a fan of one of those three teams, I'm not going to list all the teams here, but everybody's got a unique Twitter. And what it does is when you use that hashtag, it actually inserts the team logo at the end of the tweet, adding that little colorful, whatever you want to, little tiny, it's basically a tiny little picture of your team's logo. And I saw a little commercial that the Minnesota Wild put out, and it looks like it's being played on the Jumbotron at games. It's like a little tutorial on how to use that hashtag. It's pretty funny. You should go check it out.
Yeah. Hey, Wayne, real quick.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to change the subject or nothing, but a authentic men's Vegas Golden Knights hockey jersey, $249.99.
Yeah.
That's shopnhl.com. So
Yep.
Just thought I'd let you know.
I was having trouble getting that particular website to come up. I'm not sure why. But yeah.
That's a lot of money.
That's for the authentic. And I think the replicas are like 150, 175, something like that. Maybe 130 if you don't get a name and number on it. I mean, it's in that range. So you're basically looking at about 150 to 200. And what did you say, 275?
$249.99 for an authentic men's
and does that include a name and number, or is that before?
It looked like it had. Well, you know what? I don't know. That's a good question. I didn't look at the back of the jersey.
Sometimes that makes a difference. Yeah, see, shop.nhl.com is not coming up for me right now, and I'm not sure why. I use Chrome browser, and it's just not coming up. So, all right, moving on. The Pittsburgh Penguins will not three-peat as Stanley Cup champions if the full season simulation from EA Sports NHL 18 is correct. EA Sports predicted the Tampa Bay Lightning to win the Stanley Cup after defeating the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup final. And this is something that EA Sports does every year, is they play a simulation with their game to determine who the Stanley Cup winner is, and then they do a prediction on who they think is going to win. Anyway, the Penguins are projected to win the President's Trophy for the first time since 92-93, but lose to the Lightning in the Eastern Conference Final. The game predicts the Oilers to defeat the Minnesota Wild in the Western Conference Final. NHL 18 projects the Oilers to reach the Stanley Cup Final thanks to a huge season from center Connor McDavid, who will win the Hart and Art Ross trophies and the Ted Lindsay Award for the second straight season. It also projects the Lightning forward Nikita Kucherov will win the Maurice Richard Trophy as the league's top regular season goal scorer, as well as the Conn Smythe Trophy for MVP of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Boston Bruins forward Patrice Bergeron is projected to repeat as the Selke Trophy winner for Best Defensive Forward, which will be his fifth time winning the award. Ottawa Senators defenseman Erik Karlsson is predicted to win the Norris Trophy, which will be his third, and the Montreal Canadiens goalie Carey Price takes the Vezina for the second time. The simulation for NHL 17 accurately predicted the Nashville Predators to win the Western Conference. The game also had the Predators beating the Canadiens in the Cup final, but in reality, they ended up losing to the Penguins in 6 games. So the game last year got half the Stanley Cup final right.
Yep. Well, do they pick Tampa Bay to win it all?
They picked Tampa Bay to win it all. Yep.
Wow.
They predicted Tampa Bay over Edmonton in the Cup final.
Okay, yeah, I see that right now. I missed it. I missed it when you said it, Wayne. Sorry. Thank you.
All right. The last story I've got in terms of interesting stories. If you've been waiting to try out all that NHL.tv has to offer, now is your chance. 4 free games each week, all on a Tuesday, a Thursday, a Saturday, and then they'll pick one additional day. Will give you the opportunity to experience the NHL action to its fullest. Home and away broadcasts, DVR controls, multi-game views, and all the hat tricks you can shake a stick at. I put that in there because I've been an NHL.tv subscriber for a few years now, and I've been trying to push you towards that direction.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just love that package. I think it's way more robust than Center Ice. Center Ice just gives you the live games, and that's it.
Right.
Where NHL.tv, you can watch the games live. You can watch them. Like I watched the Bruins last night. I worked till 10 p.m. last night. The game was over when I got home, but I pulled up NHL.tv and watched the game on replay after I got home last night. So right. I had the Bruins game going on one screen, and then I was watching one of the West Coast. I was watching the Anaheim game last night as well on the West Coast as well. So you can watch multiple games at once. You can do picture-in-picture if you only have one screen. It's a pretty neat package. But looks like they're going to be offering 4 free games every week.
You know the reason I don't do it, Wayne, is because my wife likes watching it on our big screen TV.
In the living room, yeah.
And that's the only reason.
I'll have to come over to your house and hook something up for you.
That would be great.
To make it so you can do that.
Yeah.
Because you can, all you need really is a Roku. And now, I don't know if I told you, but I bought one a week or two ago from my office TV. It was $35. They had them at Walmart for $35. And now I can watch the NHL.tv on my big screen in my office instead of on my computer screen.
Wow.
And you can use that little Roku device right on your TV at home. All you need is a free HDMI port on your TV that isn't being used. And you can watch all the games on there. And of course, you do need a pretty strong internet connection as well.
The announcers who do the games, they're different.
You choose.
Okay.
You choose home or away. I think with Center Ice, you get the home announcers, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So if you wanted to watch the Rangers announcers when they're playing on a road game with NHL.tv, you can watch the Rangers announcers.
Okay.
You can even I believe you can even put the radio guys. I know they can with baseball because I do the baseball package too. You can listen to the radio broadcast with the television. They overlay the radio broadcast. So if you like for example, I grew up. I grew up a Red Sox fan. For those who know baseball, Boston Red Sox, of course, are one of the iconic teams of that league. Well, the radio guy that they have, he's been that guy since I was a little kid. I mean, he's been doing it forever, Joe Castiglione. And I just love, because maybe it's just nostalgia, but because I grew up with him, we used to be, as kids, we'd go outside in the backyard of the house and listen to, we'd have the Red Sox. I put my speakers of my radio in the window of my house, and we'd be outside in the backyard playing wiffle ball or playing whatever, just outside hanging out, and I'd have the game on and we'd be listening to it. So I just grew up with his voice always in the background in the summertime.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is I'll watch the baseball package. I'll watch the Red Sox games on that, but I'll listen to the radio. I'll use the radio broadcast as the audio for that. And they line it up almost perfectly. So the timing is perfect. So that's one thing you can do with the baseball. I'm not sure if you can do it with the hockey or not, but definitely you can choose your TV guys for sure.
Yeah.
Because I'll watch the NESN broadcast all the time when I do the Bruins games, whether they're home or away. So
that's neat.
So yeah, I'll have to come over to your house and hook you guys up.
You're going to need to, and we're do it one weekend. And
just to show you what it's like, I can even, I'll sign it into my account so you don't have to go out and buy it.
Oh no, we'll work that out.
No. I mean for demonstration. For me,
okay.
What I could do is I'll show you. I'll bring my Roku over to your house.
Yeah.
Plug it in, hook it up. It'll be signed in obviously to my account because it's my Roku. And then you can watch it for a day or two, and then decide for yourself whether you want to do it.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds like a great idea.
All right. So let's move on to some of the other stories. There's a couple of honors we've had this week. 14 statues of Toronto Maple Leafs immortals now stretch more than a quarter of a rink's length through Maple Leaf Square outside Air Canada Centre. Combined, these bronze players won 38 Stanley Cup championships for this century-old franchise, very elite among the many hundreds who have worn the jersey. Late Thursday afternoon, under perfect October skies, the Maple Leafs unveiled statues of forward Charlie Conacher, forward Red Kelly, and forwards Frank Mahovlich and Wendell Clark, adding to Legends Row. The four joined 10 others whose statues have been installed outside Maple Leafs downtown arena since September 2014. First came goaltender Johnny Bauer and forwards Ted Kennedy and Daryl Sittler. Then a year later, defenseman Borje Salming and forwards Matt Sundin, followed 2 months later in November 2015 by forwards Sil Apps and George Armstrong. Last October, the roster was brought to 10 with the addition of goalie Turk Broda, defenseman Tim Horton, and forward Dave Keon, the latter chosen last fall as the Maple Leafs' #1 player of all time in a vote by fans on a 31-member panel. Each of the 14 statues have come north from the studio of renowned Chicago area sculptor Eric Blom, who was in attendance with his wife Charlotte. Blom's work commemorating sports, social, and political figures and events is on display throughout the United States. Among his statues is a towering Wayne Gretzky outside Staples Center in L.A. And he's done a bunch of other work with other sports athletes as well. So kind of like Maple Leafs has taken the retired jersey, I think, to the next level there.
Yeah,
by having their own Legends Row that you can walk by and see. All right, the Pittsburgh Penguins raised another Stanley Cup banner on Wednesday, then raised the curtain on a new season with a 5-4 overtime loss to the Blues. To the Penguins, the moment that the 2017 banner reached the rafters at PPG Paints Arena, joining those from 91, 92, 2009, and 2016, their celebration of winning back-to-back championships was over, and the journey toward trying to win 3 in a row began. In their opener, the Penguins shown they have some work to do. They were sloppy with the puck at times in their defensive reads against the rush, but they battled back from down 4-2 in the third to tie it on goals from Crosby and Connor Sheary before Alex Pietrangelo won it for the Blues 1:15 into overtime. And then they got blown out last night in Chicago. Of course, that was the second night in a row playing, but this is kind of common with the Stanley Cup championship team. They have their banner ceremony, and then they come out, almost always, it seems, lose that home opener.
Right. It's very hard to, maybe the second year they come back with some zeal, but I'm telling you, I don't think they're going to win 3 in a row. I do not think they will. They may make a good go of it, but I don't think they're going to win 3 in a row. They may not even win a round in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, depends on who they face.
Yeah.
They're up against some stiff competition in that division for sure.
Yeah.
All right, and the last story I've got in this segment is kind of a sad one, actually. Doc Emrick took a few minutes out of his NHL on NBC broadcast Thursday night to pay tribute to his colleague Dave Strader in a touching segment. Strader, the longtime play-by-play announcer, died Sunday at age 62 from cholangiocarcinoma, a form of bile duct cancer. The Hockey Hall of Fame honored Strader, known as The Voice, in the 2017 winner of the Foster Hewitt Memorial Award for his outstanding contributions as a hockey broadcaster. Emrick walked viewers through Strader's career, which had humble beginnings, and talked about his journey as a broadcaster and how Strader impacted so many people with his warmth and passion for the game. And again, I've included a link to the story in the show notes, and it actually takes you right to it's about a 3.5 minute video segment that they put together in tribute to Dave Strader. And when the thing that was interesting was when Doc Emrick was introducing that segment, because it was a pre-recorded segment that they played. He himself was having trouble getting through just the introduction of it, so you can tell they were very, very close. And of course, our thoughts and prayers also go out to the Strader family as well.
Yes.
All right, it is time to talk about some predictions.
Yes.
I don't know if you had a chance to put something together, but
I did. I put together predictions to the best of my ability, Wayne.
All right.
I spent a lot of time thinking about it, but I'm anxious to hear yours too. So I don't know how you want to do this, but
all right. Well, let's start with the Western Conference.
Okay.
And we'll start by predicting the 8 teams that you think are going to make the playoffs.
The 8 teams from the West. All right.
Yep.
Finishing first.
And I think we've already talked about them anyway in our division previews. In
the division previews, yeah. If you listen to the 4 episodes that Wayne and I did on the different divisions in the NHL, you'll know who we think is going to make the playoffs. But let me suffice to say that in the Western Conference, I've got 5 teams from the Central Division making the playoffs and 3 from out in the Pacific. And the way mine go is I've got Nashville winning the Western Conference, finishing first place. Chicago finishing second, and that's regular season. I should say it that way. Yep. The regular season, number 1 is Nashville. Number 2 is Chicago. Number 3 is Edmonton. Number 4, Minnesota. Number 5, Anaheim. Number 6, Dallas. Number 7, Calgary. And last but not least, number 8, the St. Louis Blues. That's the way I see it.
All right. And as far as mine, I actually didn't have them in any particular order, just because I didn't want to go too crazy in depth with the predictions. But as far as the teams making the playoffs, out of the Central Division, I had Chicago, Minnesota, and Nashville. I'm trying to remember who I had now, because I really want to match what I said in the divisions.
Yeah.
I think I had Chicago, Minnesota, St. Louis, Nashville coming out of Central, and then I have Anaheim, Edmonton, and San Jose coming out of the Pacific.
Okay.
As my 8 Western teams. Now let's go to the East.
Okay, in the East, I've got the regular number 1, Tampa Bay. Number 2, Washington. Number 3, Pittsburgh. Number 4, Toronto. Number 5, the Rangers. Number 6, the Carolina Hurricanes. Number 7, Boston. And number 8, Columbus.
Very good. And I've actually got 5 teams coming out of the Metropolitan Conference. I've got Washington, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Rangers, and Carolina coming out of the Metro. And then Ottawa, Toronto, and Tampa Bay are coming out of the Atlantic as the 8 teams coming from the East. Now, without having to go in through matchups and all that stuff, because that's just crazy. There's no way we're going to get those right. There's no even point in doing it. Let's skip ahead. And who are your Western Conference finalists? Who are the 2 teams that are going to be there in the Western Conference final? That's how far I want to take it.
Okay. I picked Nashville against Edmonton.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
I almost picked Minnesota to beat Nashville.
Oh, okay.
I wound up sticking with Nashville again. I could see Minnesota winning that game and going, because I think Minnesota's going to have a good season, Wayne.
Yep.
But I picked Nashville against Edmonton.
Yeah, I definitely also agree with you. I think Edmonton is going to come out of the Pacific, but I had a really hard time picking between 3 teams out of Nashville, Minnesota, and Chicago.
Yeah.
Which one of those 3? Because I really think when it comes right down to it, I think it's going to be a case of which of the 3 teams are going to be healthiest come playoff time is going to be the one that comes out. But I ultimately settled on Nashville coming back out because they're out of those 3 teams are the one that, in my opinion, is just as strong as they were as a year ago. Where Chicago and Minnesota, I think, are both going to take a step back from where they were a year ago. So that's why I picked Nashville and Edmonton in the West. Now, in the East, who do you have?
In the East, you're going to really I have Tampa Bay, and I picked the New York Rangers.
Okay.
I picked the New York Rangers probably, I don't know. My reason is I don't think Pittsburgh or Washington is going to be as good as they were last year. And this time for the Rangers to get through those 2 teams, and that's a hard thing to do, to get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
And Columbus is no slouch either.
No, they're not. But I think Columbus is going to get knocked off, and the Rangers won't have to worry about that. But I just think that the Rangers, and I'm a fan, and I'm biased, of course, but they may not even make the playoffs. But I think the Rangers stand as good a chance of beating those 2 teams as they ever did this year.
Well, they're certainly, at the very least, they're as strong as they were last year. But I even think they may have taken a step forward in terms of last year with some of the signings that they've had and so on. I agree with you on Tampa Bay, but I also think Pittsburgh's going to make it that far again this year. Yeah. Just too much playoff experience not to.
Right.
Now, who do you have coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup final? You had Edmonton and Nashville.
I picked Edmonton.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's the Chicago's, Minnesota's, Nashville's are going to be beating each other up too much. I think Edmonton is going to Edmonton's only real competition at this point in my mind is Anaheim. So
and you bring up a very good point. With the exception of Calgary as the only other team I see, Edmonton is going to have an easier time in their interdivisional games than any of the other teams we mentioned making it to the finals of the respective conference.
Yep, and that may help them. I mean, granted, no game is easy in the NHL these days, but yeah, Edmonton, I agree, will have an easier time. So I also have Edmonton coming out of the West, no matter who comes out of the Central.
Right.
I have Edmonton beating them. Now, in the East, who do you have?
I've got Tampa Bay.
Me too. This is where I think Pittsburgh loses, is in the conference final against Tampa Bay. If Tampa Bay stays healthy, I think they're going to be way too strong. They just look very, very good this year.
Right.
More so than they almost made the playoffs last year. Had they had Steven Stamkos last year, they would have easily made the playoffs.
Right.
And they have him back this year as long as he stays healthy anyway. They're going to be a very difficult team to play against. Okay, so you have Edmonton and Tampa Bay in the final. I have Edmonton and Tampa Bay in the final.
Isn't that something?
Who do you have winning?
I've got the Tampa Bay Lightning winning their 2nd Stanley Cup.
All right. My mind says that, but my heart says let's go Edmonton.
Wow.
So
that is.
So you know what? Just for controversy's sake, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Edmonton Oilers winning the Stanley Cup this year.
I could very well see that happening, Wayne. So you're not,
Not that I'm a fan of theirs or anything, but I wouldn't complain if I had to watch Connor McDavid play into June. That's for sure.
He has a very strong will. He might have the strongest will of any player in the NHL, and it's just I could see them doing it. He could will his team to the Stanley Cup champs.
Yep.
He's an amazing player.
All right, let's take a minute and look at some of the individual trophies.
Okay.
Now, I don't have any long lists of finalists and anything that set aside. I'm just going to pick some players that come to top of my mind on some of these awards. But let's talk Hart Trophy.
I picked Connor McDavid.
And who else would you pick? I mean, yeah, I have him as well. With the season he had last year and the 1 or 2 games that I've seen him play this year, including the season opener as well as a couple of the preseason games I've watched him play, it looks like he's going to take a step further from where he was last year. So I think 120 points is not out of the realm for him for sure.
Right.
So, yeah, I think he's a shoo-in for that award, which would also probably make him a shoo-in for the Art Ross, at least in my mind.
Yeah, and that I did pick him to win the Art Ross as well.
Yeah. Now, who do you have for the Richard Trophy?
The Rocket Richard I have going to Connor McDavid as well.
Do you?
I think he's going to have a big year and score a lot of goals this year. And I just I can't wait to see it. Tuning in an Edmonton game is going to be a frequent thing at our household here. Yep. It really is. And I Wayne, I gotta, the one brilliant point you made in a podcast maybe 2 or 3 earlier is I think this will be the year where the mantle, or whatever you want to call it, it goes from Sidney Crosby to Connor McDavid. I really believe that.
Yep.
He's that good.
Yep.
And
I think he's already better than him.
Yeah.
Just from the early, the very small number of games that we've gotten to see so far this year, I think he's already there.
Right.
So, yeah, for sure. I'm going to go out on a limb and say one last time, and this will be it for him. Just the stuff I'm hearing out of Washington is that Alex Ovechkin has come into camp in better shape than he has in recent years. He seems to be more determined than he has been in recent years. He got a hat trick the other night.
Yeah.
I think this is the year that Alex Ovechkin, he's got several Rocket Richard trophies, but I think one last time he's going to win it this year.
Oh gosh, that's a great pick too. I mean, he could win it, Yep. I can't fault you there. That's a great pick.
All right, how about the Norris Trophy?
The Norris Trophy I have going to Erik Karlsson. And I'll say this again, if Brent Burns hadn't had the great first half of the season I think Erik Karlsson would have won it last year. But I just see him as really solidifying his place as one of the top 2 or 3 defensemen in the league.
Yep.
And I think he's going to win the Norris Trophy again.
All right. Well, I picked him in the fantasy draft, so I'm going to go with Brent Burns.
Wow.
In the Norris.
Okay.
Partly because he's on my fantasy team, but partly because he's just a great defenseman.
Yeah, he sure is. And, he could have won it before last year, too,
Oh, yeah.
A surprise he hasn't, actually.
Yep. Well, he's finally starting to get the recognition that he deserves there. All right, Vezina Trophy.
Well, the only reason I'm picking this, Wayne, is because he didn't play like a Vezina Trophy guy last night, but I just think I'm picking Henrik Lundqvist. That's probably not a pick that a lot of people might make. Probably most people would not make that pick, but I just think that that's the only way the Rangers get into the playoffs and make it to my prediction of conference finals is Henrik has to have a Vezina-like year or be one of the top goalies in the Eastern Conference. So that's my pick.
Okay. Well, the obvious choice would be to go Carey Price, but he plays for Montreal, so I refuse to do that. So I'm going to go with something that's a little out there. I'm going to go Cam Talbot.
Wow.
In Edmonton. It's a little out there.
No, well,
he had a good season last year.
He should have got one of the nominations for the Vezina last year, I thought, but that's a great pick.
You never know.
He's probably going to play more games again than anybody.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. That he's going to continue playing as many games as he did last year because Edmonton doesn't really have an answer for a backup right now. They're not very deep there. So, all right, how about Calder Trophy? Best
Calder Trophy. I got Charlie McAvoy. I know that's going to make you happy, but I believe Charlie McAvoy is going to be the Calder Trophy winner. No question. Actually,
well, my heart definitely says Charlie McAvoy. But I obviously can't go with the same guy you did, so I'm going to go with Nico Hischier in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah. If he has a big season, he sure could be.
Yep.
Brock Besser might. Clayton Keller. There's some players.
Yeah, the youth movement in the NHL is so crazy. I don't remember a time where there were as many players that are under 21 in the league as there are now. I mean, it used to be years ago when the NHL was a bigger, slower, tougher league than it is now, that teams wouldn't even look at a player until they were 21.
Right.
But now, with the speed of the game, as fast as it is, and the young players coming up, speed and youth are the way to go in the minds of most of the GMs. So bigger, stronger, slower guys are not getting the looks that they used to, and they're being replaced by the younger, faster players that are coming up through. So
right.
So it makes the game more fun to watch for sure. And I don't know about you, but the early, the first 2 days of the season so far, there's been a lot of goals scored in the first couple days. So
they sure have.
That could partly because of all the power play opportunities that everybody's getting still,
right,
due to the rule changes. But I'm liking this new direction for sure if they can keep it up.
Right.
All right, and the last one we're going to debate because really there's one other individual player award that really doesn't need to be discussed. It's the Frank J. Selke Trophy, and we both know Patrice Bergeron's going to win that one. So let's talk about the Jack Adams Award.
I've got Mike Babcock winning it. I picked Mike Babcock because I think Toronto is going to really make some moves this year, and he has never won it. So I think he's going to win it this year.
Yeah, well, it could definitely happen. I mean, Toronto's an up-and-coming team. Yeah, that's not a bad choice. And I'm gonna go Homer on my pick, and here's why. It's a small sample, but the Bruins looked incredibly good last night, despite having 5 rookies playing in the game. And if that continues, and the Bruins aren't expected to make the playoffs at all this year, and if that continues, I think their coach is going to win his first Jack Adams Award, and which will be interesting because when the Bruins decided to go with him, there was a lot of kind of scuttlebutt around Boston, and because he had never coached in the NHL in the last several years, and the previous experience that he had was with the Washington Capitals.
Right.
And that was, I guess, a complete bomb. He didn't do well at all. And, and he came in last year, basically willed the Bruins to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They went gangbusters as soon as they signed him. And we're talking about Bruce Cassidy, of course, the head coach of the Bruins, if I didn't name him before. But if he can make this group of young kids, because there's a lot of rookies on this team, if he can make them, gel them together and get them to the playoffs, I think he'll be a strong candidate for that award.
Right.
Just along a roundabout way of getting to my point.
Wayne, I think that's an excellent pick. And I could actually see that happening.
Now, if they miss the playoffs, he won't even be in the
If they miss the playoffs, he won't make it. But I think they're going to make the playoffs, by golly.
Nobody's picking them to make the playoffs. Nobody. Well, not even myself.
I am picking them, Boston fans. I am picking them to make the playoffs. And, God, if you had known me as a kid, Wayne, I hated the Bruins. But I'm picking them to make – and I think I've watched games with Cassidy, and I think the players like to play for him.
Yep.
And I think that's important when it comes to selecting the Jack Adams. Do the players like to play for you? If they don't like playing for you, you can still make the playoffs. Teams make the playoffs, but it shows, and I don't, I don't think they pick a guy like that for the Jack Adams Award. So, but that's a great pick. He could easily win that award.
Yep, I'm hoping that will happen. All right, let's move on. I think that's all the news around the NHL for this week. Unless you have something else.
No, we've hit on the major subjects I had.
Okay, let's move on to our minor league hockey minute then.
Okay.
And what league is your story out of? I forget. I know you texted me.
I picked, although I was going to pick an article. I looked through the ECHL, AHL, et cetera, et cetera. I picked the KHL one more time because I really couldn't find an article that matches the one I got. So
okay, what you got?
I got Unstoppable SKA St. Petersburg matches Avant-Garde's record. SKA St. Petersburg made it 18 wins in a row. They are 18-0, 18-0-0, equaling the record set by the Avant-Garde Omsk squad in the 2010-2011 season. In their 18th win, it was Ilya Kovalchuk's turn to dominate as SKA thumped Salavat Yelayev 6-1. On Monday, the defending champion won by the same margin, 6-1, at Lokomotiv, with Nikita Gusev, who is now this year's leading scorer in the KHL, Nikita Gusev, scoring 4 goals. Here, in the game that was played, I believe it was 3 nights ago, Kovalchuk had 3 goals, getting a hat trick, while Gusev added a goal and 2 assists. It all added up to a 15th win in regulation this season. SKA is also way out in front in scoring today. Today's 6 goals took the team's tally to 85 for the season. Only Avant-Garde, Salavat Yelayev, Akbars, and Barry Sestanya have potted more than 50. Defensively, too, SKA reigns supreme. Ilya Kovalchuk had a hat trick to put him up to second on the scoring list for the league. And I had the scoring list real quick. 4 of the top 5 players. 4 of the top 5 are from SKA St. Petersburg.
Wow.
Nikita Gusev leads the league with 27 points, and that's 12 goals. Ilya Kovalchuk has 16 goals, 26 points. And Nigel Dawes is the leading goal scorer in the KHL with 18 goals. And then a gentleman named Sergei Shirokov is 4th, and Pavel Datsuk rounds out the top 5. So SKA is...
Who's that Pavel Datsuk guy?
Yeah, I haven't heard it. He has 18 assists, by the way. Isn't that incredible? Only 4 goals. And as well, they have a player named Patrick Hersley. I know we've reported on him in previous podcasts last year. He leads all defensemen in the KHL with 18 points. And of course, he plays for St. Petersburg. So they might be one of the best teams in the world, Wayne, to start out that way.
Well, that team with guys like Ilya Kovalchuk, Pavel Datsyuk, both former NHL stars, not even just players, but stars in the NHL.
Right.
I'd be interested to see what that SKA team would do up against, if they did a 1980s era coming over here and play NHL teams kind of tour that used to happen years ago. That doesn't seem to happen anymore. It'd be interesting to see how they would. I know they would beat more than a few NHL teams. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And Igor Shestyorkin, the goalie, of course.
They wouldn't go undefeated against NHL teams, though. But
no,
they would certainly. I would bet that they would go at least 500.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
Looking at their standings, they've as of right now they've played 19 games. They're 19-0.
God, they won another one.
And they're at 54 points out of a possible 57. They do use a 3-point system over there, so you get 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points if you win in post regulation. So whether it's an overtime or shootout, they only get 2 for those wins. So, and because they have 3 games where the game went to overtime and they ended up winning it in either overtime or shootout, they only have 54 points out of a possible 57. But yeah, incredible start to the season for them. But at the same time, that comes with a little bit of a caveat that we've talked about it before, that inequality that exists among KHL teams.
Absolutely.
In the financial side of the business, where the NHL has pretty much, because of the salary cap, has all but made it financially anyway, everybody's on equal ground, where that is not the case in the KHL.
Right.
But still an incredible start just the same, because as we know, hockey games, anybody can beat anybody on any given night. But it's amazing the range you have just in the Western Conference in that league. You got SKA sitting there at 54 points already, and it's not even mid-October, and they've got 54 points. Now, granted, they're 20 games into their season already over there, and the NHL is just getting started. But at the bottom of the standings, Dinamo Riga, they've got 6 points in 18 games. So they only have a single regulation win, and they have an overtime win, and everything else is either a loss or an overtime loss for them. So they're at the very bottom of the league. They're probably already eliminated from playoff contention, and it's still October.
Yeah.
So that can't bode well. That would be a problem here in the U.S. in particular.
Right.
Having a team that bad would not be good for attendance here in the U.S. because Americans are notorious for losing interest in a losing team, as we can attest here in Carolina.
Right. That's true. It's true.
But I also have a bone to pick with the KHL too. I don't know if you saw it in the show notes, but I'm frustrated with that league this year because they've blacked out video on their website to people in, well, I don't know if it's everywhere in the world, but certainly here in the U.S. Every time you try to play a video from their website, it tells you it's not available in our part of the country. Now, I've even tried, I set up a VPN because, someone will be yelling at the radio, we'll set up a VPN. I've even VPN'd, and it still doesn't allow me to watch video from the KHL on their website. And now they've gone the next step, and the KHL has a YouTube channel that they used to put highlights on, or they still do put highlights of their games on YouTube so that you can watch it on YouTube. Even those are blacked out due to regional blackouts. Yeah. So it's frustrating. You got a league over there that's struggling financially, and I don't know if they're struggling at the gate, but the stories coming out of there about the struggles financially that they're having. You see it all the time. Teams are folding. Teams are struggling financially, and yet they're blacking out video outside their country. Why even bother having an English version of the website if you're not going to let the English speaking world see your product?
Right. Wayne, and I gotta give them credit. Their video last year was great. It wasn't just good. They had a great video product on the KHL website, didn't you think? They edited it well. It was very big, and the reason I say that is because when you watch it, you don't understand one blasted word on not one of those words. It's not a Romance language. You can't figure out what they're saying at all. Right. It's not like French or Spanish where you can pick up something. This is totally different. But their videos were right on. They did a good job, and it is frustrating. I agree. I went on last night, not a single video, and I don't think they're going to have any videos.
Yep. So I don't know if anybody's listening that has any pull with the KHL. Probably not, but it'd be awful nice if they opened up their product to the U.S. or Canada so that we can enjoy their game, because there are some good players over there, and I like to watch some of them play. So anyway, All right, let's move on to my pick of the week. I'm sorry, Minor League Hockey Minute. We're jumping ahead here a little bit. The story I have is out of the American Hockey League, and it says the 82nd season of the American Hockey League begins on Friday. That's tonight. Player development remains top priority for the AHL, and the numbers back up that mission. Last season, 121 American Hockey League players made their NHL debuts, and 88% of current NHL players last season had spent time in the AHL at one time or another. Look no further than the Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins for proof. Goaltender Matt Murray and forward Jake Gensel, each main cogs in the championship run last year, both passed through the American Hockey League, and fairly recently too. 16 members of the 2017 Stanley Cup champions spent some time with the Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Pittsburgh American Hockey League affiliate. And there's a link to the rest of the story on the page. But the point I wanted to make there is, if you live anywhere near an AHL arena or AHL city, and it seems more now than it used to be, the AHL has become very much a feeder system for the AHL. Only the very, very top tier players go straight from junior or college right to the NHL, which would be, 88% of the NHL played in the American Hockey League, so that means only 12% of players in the NHL avoided the AHL path, and I guarantee you all of those were either players that went straight from junior or college to the NHL. Probably only a few percent of those, and the rest came over from Europe.
Right.
So the American Hockey League is definitely a good league if you want to watch hockey, and it's cheap too. You and I just bought tickets to a game later this month.
Yes, we did.
$18, and we're going to be 6 rows off the ice.
And we're going, yep.
So.
And I'm tickled to death about it. I've never been to an AHL game, as you know.
Yep.
I've been to many East Coast Hockey League games, but that's just because of the way the teams and the leagues were set up. Actually, the Charlotte Checkers used to be an ECHL team,
right?
Until just a few years ago when they became an AHL.
Yeah, and the AHL really didn't exist in this part of the country until when the International Hockey League broke up and merged with the AHL. When the AHL became the only quote unquote AAA league for the NHL, then they started expanding into the South. But yeah, the Charlotte Checkers have been here. They're of course the minor league team for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I've been to one of their games. A few years ago, we went to a game against the Oklahoma City Barons during the NHL lockout when there was no hockey to go see. I had to go see some, so we took the drive down and watched the Oklahoma City Barons, and they at the time were the minor league team for the Edmonton Oilers, and we got to watch Taylor Hall, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Nail Yakupov, Jordan Eberle. I believe Cam Talbot was on the team at the time. I could be wrong about that, but I know the first 4 guys that I listed were definitely playing for Oklahoma City that night. Mm-hmm. So it was, of course, those guys wouldn't have been there if the NHL was playing at the time, but they were still AHL eligible or able to be sent down without passing through waivers. So Edmonton sent all those young stars while the NHL wasn't going on. They sent those guys down to Oklahoma City so that at least they would continue playing.
Right.
So we took the drive down, watched that game. Oklahoma City beat up on the Charlotte Checkers pretty good that game, but they were still playing in the arena where the Charlotte Hornets play of the NBA. At the time, it was Verizon Wireless Arena. I don't know if it's the same name or not still.
Right.
But that arena is an arena built for basketball, and it was set up very similar to Barclays Center in the island, where the seats at one end had to be folded up in order to make room for the hockey rink.
Right.
It's that type of an arena. And I told you before, it was very weird because they had a curtain covering the entire upper bowl of that arena, because obviously they're not going to sell 20,000 seats to an American Hockey League game, particularly in Charlotte, North Carolina. And just the sound of the game, because of the curtain and the acoustics and everything else, I kept telling, my daughter was with me at the game, kept telling her, I'm like, this is the quietest hockey game I've ever been to. Even though there's a pretty good crowd there, but just because of the curtains, it was absorbing so much of the sound. It's just you didn't hear the echo of the pucks hitting the sticks and the boards and all that. It was the weirdest sound ever, and I'll always remember that game for that. Or just the atmosphere was very different. But they have since moved on to Bojangles Arena, which is an older arena just outside of downtown Charlotte, but it is dedicated to the Charlotte Checkers now. They are the primary tenant in that building, and we're going to be going down there, and I'll be seeing that arena for the first time. I don't know if you've been in there or not.
I have, but I have not been in there for a hockey game, but it's a great arena for hockey. It's one of the old arenas. I actually went and saw Elton John there.
Yeah. It reminds me of a smaller version of the Igloo in Pittsburgh. It's a domed arena like the Igloo, although it's not retractable roof like the Igloo originally was. I know they never took the roof off in later years. The roof stopped working after a time, but originally when the Igloo was built in Pittsburgh, it was a retractable roof arena. But it's a dome stadium just like that, with no upper bowl. It's just seats go up and up and up until it hits a wall, basically. But yeah, I'm looking forward to go and see a game there because I haven't seen a game there yet. So that'll be a fun time for us. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's move on to the College Hockey Minute, and the reason being is college season is now underway. Now, we talked about the preseason poll last week. They haven't updated that poll as of yet because most teams, I think there's actually only been 3 official college hockey games where both opponents are U.S. NCAA college hockey teams. I think there's only been 3 games so far, all last week. But almost every team in U.S. Division I college hockey played last weekend. They just played exhibition games, and all the exhibition games were either against, Team USA played a couple of times against them, the under-18 team. Most of the games were against colleges from Canada. And then I saw 1 or 2 games where they were playing lower Division III schools that were local to that area. But just a note on the Canadian games. This is something that's been going on for years, even way back from when I was going to school at Maine back in the early 90s, where they play one warm-up game against a Canadian college. And now almost every college hockey team plays a Canadian college that's relatively local to them. Like, for example, Maine played Acadia this past weekend, which Acadia is based, I'm not sure exactly. I think it's in northern New Brunswick is where that college is, which is the province right next to the state of Maine. And they played each other. But I don't know what you know, Steve, about the Canadian colleges. Typically, the players that go to play for Canadian colleges are guys that have aged out of juniors, so they're no longer eligible to play in the CHL or even in the lower tier junior divisions. And these are guys that have not been able to secure a professional contract of any kind. So they're not quite good enough for the CHL, AHL, or obviously the NHL, or any of the other smaller minor league teams. These are guys that basically decide, okay, well, it looks like hockey's not going to be a career for me. I better go to school.
Right.
And they start as a freshman at these schools at the age of 21.
Right.
So the Canadian colleges, typically the talent level is a little bit lower than the NCAA because the NCAA still has very much an NHL prospect contingent to it. Yeah, not every NCAA player is going to make it to the NHL, but there's a fair number of them that have. I mean, you look at it, for example, Jack Eichel is the first name that comes to mind. He played at BU before he started, but a number of NHL, and I see a commercial all the time when I'm watching college hockey games that 80% of the American-born players that are playing in the NHL played college hockey. So talent level's higher. So as you would expect, the American colleges generally do beat the Canadian colleges more often than not. There were a couple of games where the Canadian college did upset the American college. Number 19, Ohio State lost to Ryerson 7-4. Number 6, Minnesota Duluth lost to Alberta 4-3, and number 2, BU got a tie against PEI, Prince Edward Island.
Right.
And number 10, Penn State lost to Ottawa 4-3 in overtime. And in every other case, the U.S. college won the game against these Canadian colleges. But now, this week, officially starts the NCAA season where every NCAA team has a game against another NCAA school. So this essentially is the start of the college hockey season this upcoming week.
Right.
And as a personal note, UConn comes to Maine this weekend, tonight and tomorrow night. So you know what I'll be watching tonight.
And that is on. They get the main games, a lot of them, anyways, on our cable TV.
Is it on TV? Yeah,
I don't know. NESN covers a lot of those games.
Yeah, it may be on TV, but I can also stream it on the University of Maine's website as well. So I can watch the live stream from all their home games.
Oh, that's good. Very good.
So, yeah. All right, let's move on to picks of the week. And since I just
Yes,
went
sir.
through my college one, why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay. My pick of the week, Wayne, is going to make you chuckle. I know it will. I know it because you yourself could actually be a traveling Jagr if things were right and you lived in Calgary. You might even be the traveling Jagr called the Boston Jagr. But anyways, the traveling Jagrs have got a new thing this year because Jaromir Jagr is coming to Calgary. So they're really having to revamp and change things. But the article I picked and the pick of the week actually deals directly with the traveling Jagrs recruiting a new member after their hero, Jaromir Jagr, signed with the Flames. That really throws a monkey wrench into how they do things right now currently. So they've got to change. But anyways, this article is pretty neat. Jaromir Jagr is a Calgary Flame, which means the traveling Jagrs are in search of a new member. The group of mullet-wigged Jagr superfans rejoiced after hearing that their hero had signed a one-year, $1 million contract with their hometown Flames, and the Jagrs announced that they are in search of the Calgary Jagr.
Nice.
To be the 7th member of their crew. Now, you know they have the New York Jagr and the Boston Jagr and all of that. Not to be confused with Boston Lager.
I think they have 11 Jagrs now, right? So they're looking for member number 12.
I
think that's what the article said. Yeah.
Maybe that's right. Yep. That might be right. I thought it said the 11th.
Okay. Because I know there's also a Czech Republic Jagr and
there is.
And was there an NHL All-Star Jagr or something
That's
like
correct.
that? Yeah.
That's correct. There is. Yep. But the article goes on. It says, we and other hockey fans get a chance to watch one of the greatest players ever to pull on skates for 82 or more games, Trevor Freeman, known as the Dallas Jagr, told NHL.com. The traveling Jagrs are super fans who each don a Jagr jersey, hockey socks, and fake hair to games to show their passion and support for the 45. I love these guys. They're great at the game. They really are. They make the game.
Yeah.
But to show their passion and support for the 45-year-old legend, there are 10 members of the group, one for each of his 8 former NHL teams, plus one who sports an old-school NHL star jersey, and another who wears the jersey from Jagr's team in the Czech Republic. The road trip that they take to see Jagr each year may not be necessary with Jagr playing so close to home.
Wow.
The Jagrs are split between Calgary and I hope I say this right, Kempos, Alberta, a city about 170 miles north of Calgary. They've typically seen Jagr play when his team comes to Calgary and have ventured out to other NHL cities to see him play. Last year, the road trip was to New York. We're super excited to be able to see Jagr up close and personal, kind of whenever we want for 41 games, said Freeman. That's something for us to look forward to. The criteria for the 11th member is robust. Interested parties must be a great fan, 21 years of age or older, with a valid passport, and sick flow. Now, I'm not sure what that meant, but that's what it says in the article. Who was willing to travel, able to provide her own jersey, hockey shirt and socks, and prepared to pose for lots of photos. We encourage everyone to be a traveling Jagr, Freeman said. Grab a mullet, buy a jersey, go to the game. Just remember to be a great fan, have fun, cheer for Jagr, and most importantly, love this great game just like Jagr does. So that was a great article, and I found myself laughing several times during it. But the traveling Jagrs, Wayne, they got a new member coming on board.
And you know what? What was it? I don't know what podcast we had in the recent past that we talked about it, but we did talk about this specific scenario as a possibility to happen. What if Jagr signs with Calgary?
And you picked it. You said he was going to sign. I can't remember what podcast it was.
It had to be 3-4 weeks ago. I mean, before the rumors even started to come out about him signing with Calgary. I'm like, you know what? He should finish his career in Calgary as a thanks to the traveling Jagrs for supporting him. Go play for their hometown team.
Wayne, if I had to go on the witness stand, I'd say the exact same thing for you. It's the truth. I don't know what podcast it was, but by golly, it came to pass.
Yep. It sure did.
It's going to make this season actually a lot of fun.
And now the Traveling Jagrs are going to need another new member. And I think I speak for you, Steve. If the Traveling Jagrs want to make the trip to Carolina, I'll be happy to host a tailgate in their honor at the Calgary Carolina game. Just get in touch with us through through the show, and we'll be happy to host a tailgate. And if you haven't seen tailgating at Carolina, you need to come see it, because it's a fun time. We when we do tailgate, it's a good time to tailgate right outside the arena. The weather's nice here in Calgary or in Carolina. I think it would be a great time to have the Traveling Jagrs come pay us a visit down here in the South.
Absolutely. We would love it. You would get top billing, too. If you came down here, it would be a media sensation. No question about it.
They certainly would. But yeah, I love those guys. I wish I lived closer to Calgary, because I would put my application in for sure.
Oh, that's great, man. That is great.
All right. Well,
thanks.
Yeah. My picks of the week is definitely not anywhere near as good as yours, but I'll go ahead and talk about it a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about Detroit's new arena. We've talked about it a little bit in the past, but they had their first game, or first official game in that arena last night. And of course that puts more of a spotlight on the arena and what it has. But I'm kind of a sports venue nerd, as if you want to put a more finer point to it. I always love seeing these new stadiums. I've always been a fan of the baseball ballpark and all the intricacies that come with the different ballparks, and football not so much, because they're pretty standard in size and shape. But ballparks come with the weird shape, outfield fences, and this fence is that high and that fence is that high. I've always just had an interest in sports venues,
right?
Just because of the different variety of different venues out there. So this story was kind of piqued my attention, because it's a brand new rink. It's the only one debuting here this season. Of course, Edmonton had one last year, but the Detroit arena, they had an article on NHL.com, and it goes as follows. It says, at its heart, it's a hockey rink. Amid the amenities and innovations, Little Caesars Arena, the spectacular new home of the Detroit Red Wings, is one of the best places to go see a game in the NHL, if not the best. Steep seats, great sight lines, stage lighting, organ music. It has the latest architecture and technology, yet the feel of an old building. The fans roared when Anthony Mantha and Dylan Larkin, two of the Red Wings' young stars, key pieces of their future, scored the first and second regular season goals in Little Caesars Arena history on the power play, 23 seconds apart in the second period on Thursday. They roared some more when Henrik Zetterberg and Martin Frk both scored in the third, and the Red Wings defeated the Minnesota Wild in the inaugural game 4-2. The atmosphere was awesome, Zetterberg said. Obviously, you see here the way the arena is built. It gets loud in here. It's fun to play here. The Little Caesars Arena is also the new home of the Detroit Pistons of the NBA, the lead concert venue in the area, and the centerpiece of a 50-block development called the District Detroit, revitalizing an area connecting downtown to Midtown. It's more than an upgrade over Joe Louis Arena, the Red Wings' former home, and the Palace of Auburn Hills, the Pistons' former home. The designers took the best ideas from arenas across North America, added features never seen before, and set a new standard. 4-story brick buildings make up the exterior, and a clear roof covers the area between the buildings and the arena and the bowl. That is the concourse. It's wide, full of natural light, and an indoor city street. A metal skin wraps around the bowl and becomes a giant video screen thanks to 12 strategically placed projectors. An LED grid hangs from the ceiling, changing colors, creating special effects. Did we mention the 7 clubs, 4 restaurants, and historical displays, the artwork, the outdoor plaza, the beer garden, the practice facility, and the 25,000 square foot locker room, and the 5,100 square foot center hung scoreboard? The place costs $863 million.
God.
The challenge usually is to bring the fans out of their seats. Here, with so much to explore and so many places to hang out, the challenge might be to keep them in their seats. If there was a negative, it's even though the crowd was announced at 19:15 and the seats were essentially full in the first period, some were empty in the second and third. They were probably out exploring the building.
Yeah.
But the original purpose of the Little Caesars Arena was to be the home of the Detroit Red Wings, and it was designed first and foremost for watching hockey. The designers asked GM Ken Holland for the most intimidating place to play in the NHL. He said Bell Center, home of Montreal Canadiens, because of the steep seats. They asked TV broadcasters Ken Daniels and Mickey Redmond for the best place to call a game. Both said Bell Center, because of the media gondolas hanging over the seats close to the ice. So the designers created a large lower bowl, 2 levels of suites stacked on on top of that, and an upper deck stacked on top of that, and gondolas hanging over it all. They created entry portals that block the outside light. They added LED grid, which makes the ceiling seem lower than it really is. As open as the concourse is, the bowl is tight. It just feels like there's seats on top of seats, forward Justin Abelkader said. All you see is red everywhere. I think we got it, Redmond said. We nailed it. At the morning skate, former Red Wings teammates Thomas Holmstrom and Nick Lidstrom sat in the seats taking pictures like fans, marveling. Lidstrom, a member of Hockey Hall of Fame, played his entire 20-year career for the Red Wings at Joe Louis Arena, was asked what jumped out the most. After the scoreboard, he said the seats. The stands are so much more steep, Lidstrom said. It seems like the fans are closer. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman took a tour in the afternoon with Chris Ilitch, son of Mike Ilitch, a Red Wings owner who died on February 10th. Chris Ilitch, who runs the family business empire as president and CEO of Ilitch Holdings, took his father's vision and made it a reality by spearheading this project. Bettman climbed to the last row. I'm going. This is a great seat and a great view, Commissioner Gary Bettman said. The intimacy of this building is incredible because it's hard for me to believe there are 20,000 seats for hockey here, but there are. The fans arrived early, hundreds lining the red carpet to greet the players in the plaza outside. They entered the concourse, dined at the restaurants, checked out the attractions, rode up the escalators, took it all in. Then they went to their seats for the show, and in the end, hockey was center stage. The addition of real organ and live organist was a perfect finishing touch. It was awesome, to be honest, defenseman Mike Green said. The energy was great. Obviously, with the new building, it's just completely different than any other rink. It's got its own identity. It feels a little more enclosed. They're kind of sitting right there. And, of course, they'll be there for years to come. The Ilitches said they wanted to build the best in the world, goaltender Jimmy Howard said, and they did it. So good article out of the Hockey News, or out of the NHL.com, and it was written by Nicholas Kosnicka, one of the beat writers for the Red Wings. And you know, my comment on this is the way they've designed this rink is they wanted to give it the big modern day, have all the technology, but have the feel of an old school arena, which I really love because baseball did it. They pretty much every team in Major League Baseball now has a new stadium that's retro. You know,
right.
Gone are the cookie cutter stadiums that were in Philadelphia and Atlanta, and all those where every stadium looks the same and the dimensions around the outfield fence are the same. Every stadium has its own little intricate details,
right? And
they're starting to bring that to the hockey world now. You saw it last year in Edmonton. You're seeing it here with Detroit, and you're going to start seeing as the teams go around the league and replace their arenas. Calgary obviously is trying to get an arena. It's going to be fun to see that the teams, as they move forward, all try to one up each other in arenas, which is, I love it because it's pretty cool.
Right. Wayne, I have not seen the Calgary. I mean the Edmonton arena to the extent that I've seen Little Caesars, but what I'm hearing, and I watched a game there. I've seen some footage on it and everything. What I'm hearing is that arena may even be better than the Edmonton arena. Both were designed for hockey, but they're saying Little Caesars is a state-of-the-art hockey arena, which incidentally, the Detroit Pistons are now calling their home as well in a month or so. They'll be playing there instead of at the Palace. So it's really amazing.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed with it.
Yep, it's a very nice arena. So, well, good. Let's go ahead and wrap things up now. We've got, let's see, we talked about pre-show or a little bit about next week. I'm on vacation, so I won't be able to record at our normal. I know we've announced that Thursday is going to be our normal recording night for those of you who like to watch live. But this week we couldn't do it because I had to work late last night. Next week, while I'm on vacation, I'm going to be out of town, so I can't do it next Thursday. Looks like we're targeting this coming Tuesday, which is only 4 more days before we do our next episode. So we can record one before I leave town, and there'll be plenty to talk about. It's the opening weekend of the NHL, so there'll be plenty of games to talk about for sure. So we're going to target recording a show on Wednesday, and we're probably going to do it early in the afternoon. Certainly be done before the games start Tuesday night. We haven't picked a specific time yet, but it'll be somewhere in that, anywhere from 1 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon when we start recording. So I'll probably tweet out the exact time once we settle in on it, but for those of you who like to watch us live. But anyway, so we won't be recording on our normal Thursday next week either, but after that, my vacations are done. We're getting into the holiday season where both of us get busy at work, so we'll be settling into a more normal routine after that. So.
Right.
All right. Well, once again, if you want to debate anything that we talked about, feel free to email us at feedback@thehockeynuts.com or tweet us. Steve is at sball504man. I'm at WayneHowie9. We'll be happy to debate anything with you, hockey related. We don't get into anything other than that, but we'll be happy to debate anything with you. So feel free to share the show with anybody that you know that likes hockey, because our audience is continuing to grow. And we're getting more and more listeners each week, and we're appreciative of that. And I don't know, that's all I have to say, unless you want to add anything to it.
No, Wayne. Other than it's great to, I'm excited very much for the second season and looking forward to it. So this is a really thrilling time. This best time of the year, and I'm excited as I can be about the start of the NHL season. So I'm looking forward to these podcasts coming up, talking about the greatest game in the world. This is going to be a lot of fun.
It sure is. We got another new season upon us, so let's get it on, huh? All right, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up the main part of the podcast. And then, once again, if you are interested in the fantasy hockey piece, then feel free to continue to listen. Other than that, we'll see you next week. Have a good night, Steve.
Good night, Wayne.
All right, if you're still listening to this part of the podcast, obviously you're staying here for the Fantasy Hockey League segment that we're going to have. Basically, what we're going to do each week is we're going to talk about, not only the league that I started, that several of our listeners are also involved in, but we're also going to talk about some of the specific players and teams that have had big weeks over the past week. But to start with, this is the first week of that. There's really not a whole lot to talk about since we've only had 2 nights of games. But in the league that I'm involved in, and this is the the league that we're talking about is the Black Bear Fantasy Hockey League. That's the name of the league. And of course, there are several listeners to the podcast that are also listening or that are also involved in the league. So it is the official Fantasy Hockey League of this Hockey Nuts podcast. And we are underway, and currently we have 14 teams in our league, and we have a customized scoring system. And the way the scoring system was designed is so that if you don't have the premier player in the league, like a Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid, you can still compete and possibly win the Fantasy League Championship in our league anyway. And that was the reason I designed the league the way it was, is so that you can not only build a team around a Connor McDavid or a Sidney Crosby, that type of forward, but you could also build your team around an Eriksson or a Brent Burns back on D, or you could even possibly build your team around a goaltender like a Carey Price or Braden Holtby or one of the other high-end goaltenders. So with that in mind, if I refer to any fantasy points on any players, just know that it's not the standard scoring system that is used in most fantasy leagues. This is a custom scoring system that I have designed over the last 15 years of playing fantasy hockey. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about it. Of course, we're 2 days into the season now, and we're already off to a big jump. This is a shortened week due to the loss of Monday and Tuesday. Most fantasy leagues start Monday and end on Sunday. That's the week schedule. And of course, we didn't have any Monday games or Tuesday games this week, so we are starting the week on Wednesday, which means everybody's NHL schedule will be shortened by 1 to 2 games. So most players in our league only have 1 or 2 games this week. Nobody that I know of has 3 games within this fantasy week. So right now, as far as the league that we're involved in the Black Bear Fantasy Hockey League, currently 2 days into week 1, Five for Fighting is leading the Rat Bastards, and I'll just round it up to the nearest point, 74-70. The Motherpuckers are trailing Jammer 4, which I believe is a play on Halmerson. He is ahead 76-52, Hammer 4 over the Motherpuckers. Ice Holes are beating Kessel Run 48-45. Mr. Hockey's beating Pucks for Brains 61-24. That game is not very close at the moment. Mile 40 Saskatchewan Donut Shop, and email me if you know the reference. I know the reference, but I want to see how many of you out there know the reference to that one. 61-55 over the Frozen Pogies. And the Battle Blades are beating the Sneaky Stat Weasels 63-62 right now. That game's very close. And the Hageman Hilltoppers are barely beating the Purple Haze 57-55. Now, as far as individual performances, so far, of course, there's 4 guys around the league that have hat tricks already this year. So not surprisingly, they are all in the top scoring. But Alex Pietrangelo, defenseman, thanks to his 2 goals and 8 shots on net, has 21.9 points so far this week. Wayne Simmonds, Alex Ovechkin, Connor McDavid, Brendan Saad all have between 16 and 20 points, thanks to the hat tricks that all 4 of them have. Ryan Hartman, right winger for Chicago, has a goal and 4 assists already this year, so his point total is right up there with the hat trick boys at 17.4. And then there's several players with several points already. Shane Gostisbehere with 3 assists, Mike Green with 4 assists, all are at 15.8 and 14.9 respectively. As far as rookies are concerned, Charlie McAvoy is leading the way. Defenseman for the Boston Bruins. He has a goal and assist already this year in only 1 game. He has 13.4 points as well. And on every single week, in every single segment, we're going to touch on some of the key players that had big weeks over the past week. But of course, we haven't played a full week yet, so there's no really need to go with that. So until we really get some more games under our belt, there's really not much more to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the segment for this week. And just so you know, we will be having this segment tacked on to the end of our podcast each and every week. We'll give you updates not only in the Black Bear Fantasy Hockey League, but just give you highlight some individual performances from week to week that have happened over the past week. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll see you next week.